Hey guys, Brassfax here. A question I often get asked is, yo, Asvax, you still using X, Y, or Z from that one review you did? How's it holding up long term? Upon which, the majority of the time, the answer is, no, I sold it immediately after the review. Which people, time and again, take as a sign that I secretly actually hated it, anyone that bought it, and actually my review was a complete lie and I hate everything. Look, I'm simply not a gun or gear collector. I might have more guns than the average dude, but even I don't need every single piece of gear that I review ever. Which, as such, after a review, I'm gonna get rid of the item in question because I don't have room for all this stuff. So that kind of brings me to the point of this video. I've always been curious about other gun tubers as I was getting into this space. What gear, through the mounds of gear that they actually review, do they end up keeping long term as part of their, as Nut and Fancy put it, the Nut and Fancy cast member? More importantly, how did that item hold up long term? What was long term ownership like? And what justified keeping it over any other piece of kit? Now, it's important to note, some of it is just circumstance, and I'm going to be ignoring a lot of those. For example, if I have an optic and I put it on a gun and I zero it, I am very heavily incentivized just not to take it off. Even if there's something like this 5-10% better, I'm going to bother messing up my dope and, redoing that whole process. I'm just going to stick with what worked for me. And a lot of optics as such kind of fall into that category. Granted, some don't, and I'll be also talking about those. Let's start with the OG rifle. I have this one longer than the channel has existed. Arrow upper and Spikes tactical honey badger lower, baby! I think over 7 years now. Still trucking at about 10,000 rounds, so nothing is stock on the original gun. Really, the only thing here worth mentioning is the bootleg BCG. Collectively about 17,000 rounds over 3 different, but mostly 2 different BCGs. I dig them. They say what they say on the tin, probably the easiest way to tune a gun outside of the buffer. Next up, the Polonium. Still pretty new in the air quotes arsenal, but my favorite suppressor for the money, almost RC2 performance, way less weight. I haven't had this one incredibly long. Be sure to tune it unless you wanted to get cancer, but generally my go-to recommendation. Arasaka, well, honestly, anything from Arasaka. Arasaka as a concept, it's a way of life. It's like an IKEA catalog for men, but for flashlights. I have easily probably about $600 of mounts, lights, and everything in between. Enough said. The MBT trigger. I don't even know how many rounds I have on one of these things, or actually 4 of these things. I've heard, actually, with how complex it is to manufacture the MBT, they are being sold as a loss leader, and they barely even, or don't even cover labor. Makes sense. This is a great trigger for an amazing price. It's hard to recommend anything else except maybe Schmid triggers, which are, by the way, the OEM for the ALG 2-stage trigger. I've been using these basically since the start of my channel 3 years ago, and I don't really see a reason to use anything else. All right, the Elcan. Now, I've yapped way too much about this thing. The Munition Works Fixie. Kind of just meant to, after the review, to sit in a corner as a sort of grab-and-go gun, not to really be touched. 8,000 rounds 3 years later, that has not been the case. This is a cool gun, and I've kept it throughout. Been through many iterations, but finally returned back to a ultra-lightweight setup, though I yearn for the PEC 15 front-side block combo once again.
It's the loudest and the quietest, the brightest and the actually not the.
Is this a B?
Why does it sound like Ryan's
grip is
rapping?
this?
The
Some
brightest and the brightest and
BCM
the
grip?
100 of her.
Maybe
I'd imagine
it's the
they put that on their own
suppressor
rifle.
wrap.
Yeah.
That's the suppressor
Oh,
rap.
the suppressor wrap.
Ryan, tell me about the suppressor rap.
Thank you.
You put it on the can.
What do you want me to shoot
Do
this again?
what you can. I just rhymed can with can.
What the fuck are you guys doing?
The US Night Vision DIRV. Mine's the original one, so not the upgraded variant. It's developed an issue where it can't use constant on anymore, but it's been holding up. Sort of. Haven't shot an incredible amount past that review. Most of that's just been on this AK. Really, just such a great laser ergonomically, and really the only way to set it up on an AK like this, or to get a laser that isn't a MAL on an AR-15 that doesn't obscure your field of view when you're using something like an LPVO or any kind of magnification. Alright, the MAL. It's an inexpensive boy, I know. It's been popular to clown on this thing. It's been 6,000 rounds, and 2 years later, it's the quintessential no corners cut design. My review gets into it in great detail, but the option to switch between flood and focus is amazing for both scanning and engaging, but also, perhaps more importantly, varying the amount of IR on target near instantaneously. critical when you're engaging at variable ranges due to how sensitive night vision are to light. Nothing else quite does it as fast and as subconsciously as the MUL. And as someone that probably does close to 30 plus night vision shoots a year, I like the MUL. The Munition Works Brockhard Carbine. A new addition to the cast, but been running this guy hard. 5,500 rounds in basically just over a year. That's a lot considering it itself is not a review gun, nor ever gets review items placed on it. It's doing great, looks great, only downside is the original rail sheared off. Oh, before I forget, my favorite optic at this time, I think, compared to even the Elcan, due to its versatility, the PLXC. I'm a big 1X simp. This has my favorite 1X in a first focal plane package. The reticle leaves a little bit to be desired from perfection, but compared to basically everything else on the market, it still is very good. It's also very lightweight and not horrifically priced. The Cat White Print. I'm gonna cheat here. I haven't had this for a full year. I haven't even had this for 6 months. But as long as the baffles don't disintegrate on me, I'm probably gonna buy a second. Amazing flash performance, almost on par with stuff like the RC2 or Polo. It's also a flow can. So if you know shit about fuck, that is a unheard of combo. The Surefire Turbo. Surefire has been down on both knees, taking it straight on. But now that the Turbo is out, they're on top. $300 or so on a sale, though I snagged my most recent one for $275. Comes with a great mount as long as you don't use the light as a barricade stop, and is by far the brightest light at this time. The Bee's Chest Rig. A chest rig is a chest rig is a chest rig, but this one is pretty cheap as far as they go. Not too big, not too small. Can you easily reinsert mags? Easily able to one-hand reinsert mags, and it has the pull forward adjustment for easy, adjustment for. I really, really like this thing, and I breathe a sigh of relief every time I finish a chest rig review because I can go back to what I'm comfortable using, which is, this guy right here. The Bull Armory 2011. It doesn't shoot amazingly well due to its petite weight compared to basically any other 2011, but it's actually one of the nicer build quality 2011s due to a really decent price. Yes, better than a Staccato, fight me. And because of its weight, I feel comfortable carrying it. The only downside is that they're sort of permanently out of stock. My G19 and Roland. Both of these guns are verging over 7 to 8 years old now. The G19, though it's got a new paint job, is closing in on 20,000 rounds, and the Roland is just shy of 10,000 rounds. I carry the G19 in a Gray Matter Concepts holster probably 50% of the time, the 43X 25% of the time, basically only when I go to the climbing gym, and the Roland the other 25% of the time when I want a more capable gun and I'm spun up on the G19 grip angle. Speaking of gray matter, this guy is my homie up north. I've known this piece of shit for probably half a decade now, actually more, and he is about 30% the reason for my current liver cirrhosis. He makes a pretty decent holster out of his basement. They're good. Go check him out.
These are the stories of the Starship Enterprise. Her ongoing mission to explore the galaxy. Just kidding, it's a Hall.
Let's move on to some aux gear. DG3, oh geez, zoom out. The DG3 Crossfire. They don't make it anymore, but they have a new variant for basically the same price. Uses a plastic external frame that can actually handle both being in the cold and being tossed around like in a beach ball, or both, actually, which is not what can be said about most external plastic frames. Easy to wear with full kit, scales from anywhere from 35 to 60 liters, so I've been using it both as a large assault pack to a rucksack style. Unfortunately, I won't be doing as many rucks as I did last year. My dog's ACLs are just pooped and won't be getting better until she kicks the bucket. The MSS Bivy. So this is the modular sleep system from the military. I don't like the sleep system as a whole. It's incredibly warm and very cheap, but it's huge, bigger than some rucks. The Bivy itself, though, is an amazing piece of versatile kit. Insanely durable, usable as a mat, kind of just to sit on, an extra bag layer. You can put gear into this and it keeps it dry if it's like raining or snowing. And when you use it, as an actual bivvy, works amazingly well cowboy camping. In addition to keeping you dry, it adds immense warmth rating, or whatever it's called, when you're actually using it in conjunction with a sleeping bag, or even without, with just warm weather gear. Make sure to not seal yourself into it, otherwise you're going to be extremely moist. Also this guy, the Snugback Stratosphere. It's basically a bivvy tent thing. I'm guessing it's actually fairly comfortable if you use it without a dog, but with a dog it's kind of cozy, but it's small, lightweight. I've kind of been treating this thing like an asshole and it's holding up just fine. About 20 uses now over 2 years. Surplus bandolier. Goated with the sauce, as the kids say. I didn't think I'd use these things as much as I do, but I do use them as much as I do. Loose mags are for chumps, use these. The Dragonfly MSR stove. It doesn't really do anything particularly well, but it uses basically any type of fuel, which is good enough for me. I've been using this guy for, get this, probably 15 years now if you count my time in the Boy Scouts. Versatile, durable, and louder than a fart during your final exams. The XTS 2500. I think this is more of a pro towards just comms in generals, but I really like comms. Having friends with this dedicated to kit, every time you saddle up, you're on the same network, encrypted, zero setup time. I can make comms across the city with an aux antenna, and unlike a UV5R, these actually can hold up to the rigors that I expect from it. Now, I'm not really sure a XTS 2500 is the choice anymore. Very tedious to set up, even worse to encrypt, and they're becoming vastly more expensive by the day. Probably just buy a DMR or some flavor. The Flux Raider. It's not as cool as it used to be now that the 365 Flux is out, but I still use it because I'm a big fan of suppressed PDWs due to their ability to be natively subsonic. I'm pairing this with a Strike 80 holster, a really nice, high-quality holster, and it's sort of given it a second chance at life as something I'm willing to use over the holsterable Flux 365, despite all the SIG hate, probably one of the quintessential PDWs at this time. The TP9, the huge-ass suppressor. I've kind of treated this more as a PCC, with my Flux 365 and Flux Raider kind of taking up the PDW role more effectively, and I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this thing as I basically burnt through every single internal part through hardware. As such, I've meant to kind of sort of stash it at my car, my parents' house, or in the van, never to shoot it again, and just have it staged. But man, I just keep coming back to it. Once you learn how to use the trigger, it's just a joy to shoot. It does still do PDW things, and with the new B&T trigger coming out, the suppressor adapter, I suspect there's a lot more life left in this thing. And finally, the most important thing that I've kept over the years, my dog Nova. She's now 12 years old, showing her age. She's a bit rough around the edges. She's got that gray whisker stuff going. She can't really walk as much as she used to, maybe a mile at most at a time, though she certainly tries, but she's still got that puppy dog mentality many years down the line. Excellent, best-in-class personality, still cuter than every dog I ever see. Couldn't imagine a better dog. Would recommend. 10 out of 10.
Nova, are you one of the humans?
Oh, Nova? Yeah, she is.
Very human-like behavior.
Yeah, I often stick my nose into a circle formed by another person's hand.
Nova's people.
She's good people. She looks like she just enrolled at University of Oregon. PSU, Portland State University. Liberal arts degree. Gender studies. Do they do comp lit anymore, or have they replaced it with media literacy?
It's probably media literacy now. Like, judging the subtle cues that each television show and news broadcast. Just trying to tell you.
No, but what's your film studies specialty?
Ham.
Food. Drink.
This lighting in here is incredibly bisexual. Metrosexual.
I think it's monosexual. There's no blue, it's just pink.
Oh wait,